She was the fat girl bride. The rancher's words stunned everyone Montana territory. Spring 1882. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The wind carried the scent of thawed earth and pine sap across the valley. Snow still clung to the shaded gullies, but the prairie grass had begun to push through, thin and green. Along the rutted trail, a single wagon creaked its slow way west. Inside it sat Clara Mayfield, hands folded in her lap, the hem of her calico dress brushing against a basket of preserves. She was 26, broad-shouldered, soft-faced, and round in all the ways the world liked to remind her she shouldn't be. She wasn't headed to visit kin. She was headed to meet her husband. Her father had arranged it, a good match, he'd said, for a girl who's better at baking than beauty. The man she was to marry. Elias Turner owned a ranch near Bitterroot Ridge, a widower, no children. Needed help running the place. The driver, a thin man named Boyd, spat into the dust. "You nervous, miss?" Clara smiled faintly. No use being nervous. The road leads where it leads. She thought of the letters she'd exchanged with Elias over winter brief spare notes. He'd written about fences and weather, never about feelings. Still, there had been a steadiness in his words, something she hadn't found in others. When the wagon finally turned down the narrow track to Turner Ranch, Clara saw a cabin built solid against the hill. The smoke from its chimney rose straight into a pale blue sky. A man stood out front, hat low, coat unbuttoned. Broad frame, weathered face. His eyes, steady and unreadable, followed the wagon's slow approach. Boyd jumped down first and nodded toward him. "Here she is, Mr. Turner." Elias Turner's gaze shifted to Clara as she stepped down. She felt his eyes take her in, not cruelly, not kindly either, just assessing, as a man does with a new horse or fence post. "You came a long way," he said finally. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "I hope the journey's worth it." He nodded once. "Reckon we'll find out." The wind pushed her shawl against her face, carrying the smell of pine smoke and cold river water. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk called. Inside, the cabin was cleaner than she expected, rue-hewn logs chinked tight. A stone hearth, a table sturdy enough for a family that no longer lived here. Elias hung his hat by the door and motioned for her to sit. He didn't hover, didn't offer to take her shawl. Just moved slow, like a man used to silence. Clara took in the space, the polished stove, the neatly stacked firewood, the faded quilt folded on the cot. It spoke of habit and solitude. "I didn't expect you till tomorrow," he said. The roads were clear most of the way. He nodded. "You hungry?" "I can fix something," she offered quickly. "I brought bread and pickles from home." He hesitated, then gave a half smile. "You're the guest. Guess I ought to do the honors tonight." He took a skillet from the peg and began cracking eggs, quiet and sure. Clara watched his hands, scarred, strong, careful. When he set the plate in front of her, she folded her hands. "Thank you." They ate in silence, the sound of the fire popping between them. Outside, a coyote yipped somewhere near the ridge. When the plates were clean, Elias leaned back. "I know what folks say," he said, voice low, "about a man taking a wife through letters. About taking one who ain't young and pretty." Clara's hand tightened on her fork. "But I ain't much for folks talk," he went on. "I wanted someone honest. Someone who don't quit when life sours. That's what you said in your letters," her throat caught. "And you still wanted me?" He looked at her, then really looked. "I don't buy stock on looks. Never did." Outside, wind rattled the window pane, soft and persistent. Inside, Clara felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been knotted tight for years. The next morning, Clara rose before dawn. Elias was already gone to the north pasture, a trail of boot prints marking his path through the frost. She tied her apron, rolled up her sleeves, and started the stove. The smell of biscuits filled the room before sunrise. She swept the porch, beat the rugs, mended 2 shirts by noon. By midday, the ranch hands came in from the fields, 3 men rough as tree bark. They paused when they saw her. "That the new missus?" One whispered, not softly enough. Clara heard, but didn't flinch. "Biscuits are hot," she said simply. "Coffee's on the stove." They sat. And when they tasted her cooking, conversation stopped. Elias came in last, wiping his brow. He looked from the table to her, then to the men whose faces were clean for once. "Didn't figure you'd have time to feed all of us," he said. She smiled faintly. "Didn't figure I wouldn't." He gave a short nod, but his eyes softened. For the first time, Clara thought she saw warmth there. That evening, she found him fixing a gate by lantern light. She brought him a tin of stew, still warm. He paused mid-swing of the hammer. "You don't need to tend to me, Clara." She set the tin down. "Ain't tending. Just sharing supper." Something in the way she said it steady sure made him lower the hammer. He took the tin, wordless. But the silence between them wasn't the same as before. It came without warning. One moment the skies were clear. The next, a black wall rolled over the ridge. By dusk, rain slammed against the cabin like fists. Elias was out in it. He'd gone to drive the cattle off the flooded creek bed. Clara stood by the window, heart pounding, watching lightning split the horizon. She lit every lamp she could find, praying he'd see them through the rain. The wind howled like a living thing. Hours passed. The lamps burned low. Then boots on the porch, the door flung open. Elias stumbled in, soaked to the bone, a calf slung over his shoulders. Clara rushed forward. "Lord Elias." He set the animal down, gasping. "Lost 2 head. Saved this one." His voice broke with exhaustion. She grabbed a towel, helped him peel off his coat, her hands trembling. "Sit by the fire. You're half frozen." He started to protest, but she cut him off, her voice firm. "Don't argue." He obeyed. As she knelt to warm his hands by the fire, something in him cracked open. He watched her face, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, her eyes fierce and full of worry. "You ain't afraid of much, are you?" he murmured. She met his gaze. "Afraid plenty. Just learned fear don't get the chores done." He laughed once, quiet and rough, then softer. "I ever tell you my first wife died in a storm like this?" She shook her head. She was small. Couldn't hold the door when the wind came through. Took her with it. Clara's hand moved to his arm. "Then you've carried that storm a long time." He didn't speak, just looked at her with the kind of gratitude words couldn't hold. The thunder rolled outside, but inside something gentler had begun to take root. By late spring, the valley had bloomed. Calves bawled in the pastures, lilacs opened by the fence line, and the ranch hands had grown used to the new rhythm Clara brought. Warm meals, laughter in the kitchen, even music on Sundays. But small towns have small hearts sometimes. When Elias took Clara to the general store one Saturday, whispers followed her through the aisles. "That's the bride from back east," one woman muttered. "The heavy one." "Poor man," another said. "Could have had anyone." "Took her." Clara kept her head down, clutching her basket tight. Elias paid for the sugar and coffee, said nothing. Outside, she finally spoke. "You shouldn't have to hear that." He turned to her, eyes steady. "You think I don't know what they say?" She swallowed. "It don't bother you?" He shook his head slowly. "Clara, I've buried a wife, lost half a herd, near froze one winter with nothing but a horse blanket. You think folks' tongues are the worst thing I'll face?" She blinked, startled by the force in his voice. He stepped closer, lowering it. "They see a fat woman. I see the one who got this place breathing again. The one who cooks for men who forgot what kindness tasted like. The one who makes me want to live quiet and good." People passing by had stopped to listen. The silence stretched wide. Elias lifted the sack of flour to his shoulder, calm as ever. "Let him talk," he said, looking at her. "I married the best woman in the valley." That night, when they rode home under a soft pink sky, Clara said only one thing. "You stunned everyone today." He glanced at her, lips twitching. Only ones that needed stunning. Summer came easy after that. The ranch flourished. The men worked harder, laughed louder. Even the neighbors came around, some out of guilt, some because word had spread that Turner's place was running smoother than ever. Elias built a porch swing that creaked pleasantly in the evenings. Clara planted herbs by the kitchen window and sang while she cooked. Sometimes they'd sit together after supper, the air thick with the scent of rain and wildflowers. Elias would sip coffee. Clara would darn socks by lantern light. "You ever wish you'd married someone else?" she asked one night, not looking up. He turned the mug in his hands. "No, even after all the talk." He leaned back, watching her in the warm glow. "Talk dies. Work lasts. Love lasts longer." Her needle paused mid-stitch. She smiled then, small but sure. Outside, the crickets sang. Inside, the stove crackled and the world felt right. If this story warmed your heart, remember, out here on the Montana frontier, love doesn't come riding in with fireworks. It comes quiet, steady, and honest, like spring thawing the last of winter's snow. Subscribe to Wild West Love Stories for more tales where kindness outlasts gossip, and hearts find home where they're least expected.